Welcome to Horror Tales, where the shadows come alive and every story leaves you breathless. The Ghost Teacher. Cedar Valley High School had its share of urban legends, but none were as well known or as feared as the story of Ms. Harper, the Ghost Teacher. According to the whispers passed down through generations of students, Ms. Harper had been a beloved teacher who tragically died in a classroom fire decades ago. They said her spirit still roamed the halls, seeking justice for her untimely death. For years, it was just a tale to scare freshmen. But one chilly October morning, the legend came to life. It was a Monday like any other when the students filed into Mr. Daniel's history class, only to find him absent. Instead, there was a woman standing at the front of the room, her back to the class, as she wrote something on the blackboard. The students exchanged confused glances. Substitute teachers were common enough, but no one had mentioned Mr. Daniel's being out. The woman turned around to face them, and an unnatural silence fell over the room. She was pale, almost too pale, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun. Her clothes were outdated, a long skirt and a high-collared blouse that looked like something out of the early 1900s. But it was her eyes that sent a chill through the room. They were cold and distant, as though she were staring right through the students. "My name is Ms. Harper," she said in a voice that was both soft and stern. "Today we will learn about the history that this school has forgotten." The name sent a ripple of unease through the class. Some students smirked, assuming it was a joke, but others exchanged nervous glances. Everyone knew the story of Ms. Harper, but this woman couldn't be her, could she? She began the lesson, speaking in a monotone voice as she scribbled dates and events on the board. The students tried to focus, but something about her was deeply unsettling. The air in the room felt thick, heavy, with a sense of foreboding. Some students noticed that the windows, usually clear, were fogged up from the inside, despite the chilly weather outside. About halfway through the lesson, strange things began to happen. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. The temperature dropped suddenly, causing the students to huddle in their jackets. A few students whispered to each other, but Ms. Harper's cold gaze silenced them immediately. "Pay attention," she said sharply. "This lesson is important." As the lesson continued, the atmosphere grew more oppressive. The students started hearing faint noises, whispers that seemed to come from the walls, the floor, the very air around them. The whispers grew louder, overlapping with Ms. Harper's droning voice until it became impossible to tell them apart. One student, Jake, couldn't take it anymore. He raised his hand. "Excuse me, ma, I am but. Excuse me, ma, I am but. Who are you really?" Ms. Harper turned to face him, her eyes narrowing. "I told you I am Ms. Harper, your teacher, and you will respect me." Jake felt a sudden pressure in his chest, as if something was squeezing his heart. He gasped, struggling to breathe, but Ms. Harper's gaze held him in place. "You see, children," she said, her voice now echoing with an unnatural resonance, "there are lessons in history that must never be forgotten, lessons about betrayal and justice." The lights flickered again, and this time they went out completely. The room was plunged into darkness, broken only by the faint, ghostly glow of the blackboard. The students could barely see each other, but they could feel the presence of Ms. Harper, looming over them like a dark cloud. Suddenly, the door to the classroom slammed shut with a deafening bang. The students jumped, their hearts pounding in their chests. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped. Ms. Harper's voice cut through the darkness. "This school tried to forget me, tried to erase the truth of what happened, but I will not be silenced." A cold wind swept through the room, carrying with it the smell of smoke. The students could see flames flickering at the edges of the room, but they weren't real, not entirely. It was as if the room was reliving the fire that had claimed Ms. Harper's life. "Please," a student cried out. "We don't want to hurt you." Ms. Harper's figure became more transparent, flickering like a candle about to go out. "Hurt me? You already have," she whispered, her voice filled with sorrow. "But now, you will learn. You will all learn." The flames grew brighter, the heat more intense, and the students huddled together, terrified. Just when it seemed the fire would consume them all, Ms. Harper's figure dissipated into the smoke, her final words echoing in the air, "Remember me." The lights flickered back on and the flames vanished. The students were left in a cold, silent classroom, with no sign of Ms. Harper. The door, now unlocked, creaked open and the students fled, eager to escape the haunting memory of what had just happened. Later, when they reported the incident, no one believed them. The administration dismissed it as a collective prank or a case of mass hysteria. But the students knew the truth. Ms. Harper had returned, if only for a day, to ensure her story was never forgotten. And from that day on, whenever a substitute teacher entered the classroom, the students couldn't help but glance at the door, half expecting to see the ghostly figure of Ms. Harper returning to teach one final lesson.